Loud. Okay. Yeah, I'm all about on-time takeoff. That's what we learned in the Air Force. See Dale Dix that's joined us. Dale, are you out there? Can you hear us?
Uh, good morning. Yes, I can.
All right, all right. Good deal. We hear you loud and clear as well. As we are getting started, Dale, could you provide us a quick background of who you are and what you do?
Yes, I can. Just 1 second.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. Let me give you a little background here. Okay.
Nice.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dale Dix. It's my pleasure to be here today. I hail from South Carolina. I spent my formative years growing up in South Carolina. I was born at Shaw Air Force Base. My father was a career military enlisted man. We moved around a little bit. I lived in Kansas. I lived in Oklahoma. Returned to South Carolina in the 10th grade and graduated from high school there. Went on to attend the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina, where I pledged Kappa. So,
Oh,
so I
okay,
understand
okay.
I'm in the midst of all these Omegas, but but I am a good Kappa man. Upon graduating, I was commissioned a second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps, where I was an aircraft maintenance officer by trade. I went to Naval Postgraduate School, where I got my master's degree in financial management. Upon retiring from the Marine Corps, I went to work for Fannie Mae. And at Fannie Mae, I was in charge of diversity, equity, and inclusion training for all Fannie Mae employees, as well as its external efforts to do financial education training with our business partners, which were lenders, banks, realtors, and community nonprofits, mostly in the housing industry. Upon retiring from Fannie Mae in December of 2007, since January of 2008, I've been an entrepreneur in financial services. So I spend about 70% of my time educating people on personal finance and about 30% of my time working in diversity, equity, and inclusion, training, coaching, and consulting, as well as other personal development or soft skills training. So it's my pleasure to be here today. I think I'm amongst some stellar performers, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Dale. Truly appreciate that. Wow, you have an extensive background. Well, except for the Kappa part, but that's okay.
Thank you, brother.
It's all good, all good. Looks like Georgia, Commander Georgia Eves is about to join us. Commander Georgia Eves is, and I won't steal her thunder, but Georgia, we're just getting started. Could you please introduce yourself as we're getting started, as we get more and more people on the line? I think if we get maybe one more person, we'll go ahead and start the program. So, Georgia Eves, could you please introduce yourself, please, ma'am? I think she may still be trying to connect her audio and video. So while she's setting that up, it's 8:04. Okay, we got Sherman Coleman joining us. Oh man, we got some heavy hitters this morning, Miko. Hey, these are some centers of influence you about to meet and greet. So I'm excited, very excited. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the formal agenda. I want to thank everyone for carving out time on their Saturday morning. You could be eating Fruit Loops or is still in the bed or somewhere doing grocery shopping or cutting the grass or somewhere else, but you decided to get up bright and early and join us for this event. Now, I've already had Dale give a brief bio, but I think it's important for everyone to know who's in the room. So what I'll do, Dale, is ask you to give a short version of who you are and what you do. Over.
Okay. Again, good morning, everyone. My name is Dale Dix. I hail from South Carolina. I'm a 1978 graduate of the Citadel, where I majored in business administration. Was commissioned a second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps, and I went on to serve 20 years in the Marine Corps, where I was an aircraft maintenance officer by trade. I got my master's degree in financial management from the Naval Postgraduate School. Upon retiring from the Marine Corps, I worked for Fannie Mae. Worked for Fannie Mae for about 10 years, where I was in charge of diversity, equity, and inclusion training. Retired from Fannie Mae at the end of 2007. Now I'm an entrepreneur, primarily in financial services and personal development training.
Okay. Thanks, Dale. And one question I want to ask everyone as well is, and that question is, how has COVID-19 affected your social wellness? So Dale, if you can answer that question as well before we move on.
Sure. COVID-19 has made a serious impact, I think, on my social, say, life, as well as business life. Fortunately, however, I do most of my work and had been doing my work virtually for quite some time before COVID, so it's had less of an impact in that regard. But socially, I've kind of resigned. I find that I have resigned myself to staying in and pretty much being in isolation for the greater part of the time. And now that things are opening back up, it's been difficult to kind of make that paradigm shift. So I'm struggling just a little bit, readjusting, if you will, to an open society. We still don't know what the new norm is going to be, right. So I prepare myself for that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Dale. Thank you. Appreciate that. Now I would like for Mr. Torrance Beck to introduce himself, who he is, what he does, and how COVID-19 has affected his social wellness. Over to you, Torrance. You're on mute.
Good morning. I have my camera off. Good morning, everybody. I'm Torrance Beck. I'm retired from the Army, 25 years. Medical Service Corps officer. I was probably enlisted first. Now I'm a contractor working for the Joint Program Office, Joint Program Executive Office, Chemical, Biological, Radiological, Nuclear, Medical Devices. How COVID-19 has affected me socially. First, it was good because I stayed at home. I was enjoying staying at home. I realized that I could save a lot of money. I didn't need a lot of things that I thought I needed in my life, but then I had some transition in my life at the same right at the beginning of COVID-19. So immediately I spent a lot of time by myself, and there was some growing pains of just getting used to who you were again, because I went from having people around to not people around. And the positive thing is I know who I am now. I'm very excited about life, very optimistic about the opening up, at the same time trying to have safeguards and keep myself protected. I went out and grabbed some dinner last night, and maybe it's psychological, but as soon as I was coming home, my nose started running. I had a cough, and it's like, I'm vaccinated, but sometimes when I get around people, it's still leery because it's like just being around people makes me feel a little uncomfortable. But I am a social person, but also I realized that with COVID-19, some of the things I thought I needed in life or I enjoyed, I really didn't. It was a lot of static noise. So being by yourself or being in a small circle, doing things and just staying busy with relatively good things, or it's really been a blessing. I enjoy it. I enjoy it now. So after this call, I'm going to go ride my bike, maybe 10 to 15 miles. I'm going to go work out. I got a haircut appointment at 1. Get my truck washed, and then I'm going to grab something to eat, and then just enjoy the rest of my day. And so I'm glad to be on this call this morning. I was going to ride this morning, but I noticed I had this call, so I'm going to push my ride to 9 so I can get on this call with you great colleagues and enjoy the conversation.
Hey, thanks, Torrance. I appreciate you carving out time and being, transparent about, your social wellness. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Sherman Coleman. Could you please give a go ahead?
Well, thank you, Dr. X. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I just want to thank the opportunity to be here. I'm Sherman Coleman. I'm with the Frederick County government. I most recently was involved with the minority business outreach for Frederick County. I'm now involved with minority recruitment. Like everybody else, I had to pivot during the COVID-19 pandemic. But I think for all of us, I think we discovered something internally within ourselves that we didn't know that existed before. There's something about COVID that brought something out that you didn't know existed. We had to dig deeper in a different realm, so to speak, that we didn't know existed, but we met the challenge. And I think we discovered something about ourselves that we just weren't aware of. And I'm just so glad and proud of Dr. X, because I've seen where he's come from and see where he's risen, and also just to see where his heart is. And to do what he's doing right now, to be honest with you, I saw 3 years ago. We talked about that. I said there was a beacon that he was going to reach out and conquer just from who he is. And I'm just glad to be a part of it and glad to be a part of this meeting this morning.
Thanks, Sherman. I appreciate that. Sherman had a lot to do with where I am now, with the confidence and the message, the purpose, the power. Sherman helped cultivate that. So I appreciate you being on the call.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Xavier Bruce. Most of you all know me, U.S. Air Force retired Lieutenant Colonel, CEO and founder of Uplift Energy Coaching. I'm also the commander of the Western Maryland chapter of NAV Vets. And this effort is in collaboration with Montgomery County, actually, and the forthcoming Montgomery County NAV Vets chapter, as well as the African American Health Program. So, but now on to what we've all been waiting for, our guest speaker this morning. This gentleman and I, we met back in 2019 at the National Speakers Academy. And I don't know if he remembers this story, but at one of our meetings, I shared with him how I wanted to help veterans, especially Black veterans, kind of empower themselves from the inside out. And he said, so kind of like empowerment. I said, yeah, empowerment. Now we run a nonprofit by the name of Uplift Empowerment. And our tagline is empower, or the tagline for my for-profit is empower and uplift your damn self. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Miko Whitlock. Over to you.
Awesome. Well, good morning, everyone, and excited to be here. Thank you, Dr. X, and thank you to all of you for your service and for all that you're doing, and for making space to really be here to be a part of what I think is an important conversation. So without much delay, I'm going to go ahead and move us forward into this conversation, talking a little bit about my expertise, which is really around digital wellness and digital well-being and how that intersects with social wellness. But I want to start by setting the stage and the context. Many of you have already shared at the outset some of the challenges in response to Dr. X's question around how has your social wellness, how has your social well-being been impacted by the pandemic? And so we know, and maybe you've been following this, Naomi Osaka, 23-year-old tennis superstar, and recently, turned things upside down in the tennis world by refusing to give post-match press conferences, citing her desire to protect her mental health and her social well-being. And based on what you all have shared already, I'm imagining that some of you can relate to that. Maybe you can connect with that, especially given the year or so that we've all had. But I want to share this with you, that despite what we have experienced, despite what you have experienced, despite what might be happening in your life right now, just like Naomi, I have confidence that you are doing the best that you can right now with what you have to show up for yourself, for your friends, and for your family, and for your colleagues. I also want to share that oftentimes, sometimes we feel like we have to be strong, and in order to be strong, we can't admit when we have moments where we're not okay. And I want to give you permission to acknowledge if you've had moments, or if you're having a moment where you're not okay, where you're tired, where you're exhausted, where you are overwhelmed, that is perfectly okay. And that in response to that, it's perfectly okay for you to, for once, put yourself at the top of your to-do list, to make time for your own rest and restoration, and to ask for help if you need that help, because none of us walks this journey alone. And then finally, as we walk through this setup for this conversation that we're about to have, I want to share that I believe that whether you're retired, whether you're still working, whether you're in service, or whatever that looks like for you, that we all have a higher purpose to which we're called, that we all have time, resources, talent that we can give back to the world. And it's in times like these, particularly in times of crisis and times of a massive change, I believe that we're called to step more fully into whatever that purpose is. And so if you haven't reconnected to that, I invite you to take this opportunity to do that. And if you're not sure what that is, I invite you to take a moment to pause and think about what that is. And I'm going to talk about some steps to help you to do that if you haven't already done that. But that's going to be one of the ways that we navigate the challenges that we're dealing with. And particularly when we talk about our social wellness and well-being, part of that has to do with being connected to that higher mission, right? So all of you have served, you understand what it means to be mission oriented in that way. But what does it mean to be mission oriented as you think about your life outside of just your professional identity? So with that being said, I want to guide us through a warm-up exercise called the Lion's Breath. And so I'm introducing this exercise because I take a mindfulness-based approach to the work that I do with organizations around work-life and tech-life balance. And so I'm going to invite you, if this feels comfortable, it feels right for you, right wherever you are, whether you're standing or sitting or lying down, just take a moment to pause and to close your eyes, rest your eyes if that feels right for you. If you're seated, taking an upright and a comfortable position that just feels good for the body in this moment. And you can be standing or lying down if that works best for you as well. And just take a moment to connect with the body and to notice the support for the body in this moment. If you're seated, that might mean noticing that the body is supported by a chair or sofa or some other thing that's supporting you in this moment. Maybe noticing that the feet are touching the ground or the carpet beneath you. Take a moment to notice that. And then expand your awareness when you're ready to notice that the heart is beating. You might choose to place your hand over your heart if that works for you in terms of noticing the heart beating. And then expanding your awareness to notice that the body is breathing. The body is breathing all on its own, really without any need of support from you to do that. Maybe you notice that through the rise and fall of the belly of the chest, or through the in and out breath through the nostrils of the mouth. Just taking an opportunity to notice that natural rhythm. And in the next few moments, I invite you to follow my guidance as I guide us through 3 deep intentional breaths, breathing in fully and deeply, in through the nose and out through the mouth. And let's take this first breath together. When you're ready, breathing in fully and deeply, in through the nose and out through the mouth. In again through the nose. And out through the mouth. And one final breath together when you're ready, in through the nose, fully and deeply. And out through the mouth. Allow the body to settle. And if you chose to close your eyes, I invite you when you're ready to open your eyes. And so I share this, we're talking about wellness, we're talking about social well-being, and we know that regulated breathing, for those of us that are able-bodied, it's free, it's portable, it's accessible, and it has an almost instantaneous impact on us in terms of our ability to be able to calm the central nervous system and to be able to really refocus ourselves and to really reorient us into being fully engaged in the present moment. So with that being said, we've done our warm up. We're going to engage in a short conversation. So if you're ready, give me a thumbs up or a yes into the chat. Let me know you're ready to go. All right, I see your lovely face for the folks on the screen. All right, awesome. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the challenge. So we talking about social wellness. So what do we mean when we talk about social wellness? Well, at the core of it, we're really talking about the quality of our connection to ourselves and to the other people in our lives. And one of the things that we know is that as social beings, this is a critical need for our survival and also for our ability to not only survive, but also to thrive. And so we know that you can have food, you can have shelter, you can have water, you can have all those basic needs met, but you can still be in survival mode if you're not having a high quality of connection to yourself and to your community. And there's lots of research that shows that the folks that actually are thriving late in life, not just breathing, but people that are actually thriving, one of the central components of that is actually those really strong social connections. And so in today's world, we know that a lot of that is facilitated by technology. So this is where my expertise comes in around digital wellness. So I want to talk with you a little bit about digital wellness, or this idea that we're being intentional or mindful about how we're leveraging our technology to improve our wellness, our well-being, in this particular case, our social wellness. But let's take a step back and talk about what does this actually look like in terms of what COVID has done and how it's impacting many of us, right? So for many of us, we've gone through this roller coaster of mental reactions, of emotions. And for folks that are studying this, they're saying this is the next wave of a really widespread mental health challenge that we're dealing with as a society. And so why is this? So there are a number of aspects of this that are impacting how we're feeling. So I want you to know that it's not your imagination, right? There's nothing wrong with you, that you're not broken, that this is the dynamic in which we're all being pulled in, right? So the first part of this is the uncertainty. So not knowing what's next, as some of you mentioned, I believe that Dale talked about this, like referred to the normal or the new normal. What is that actually going to look like? There's uncertainty about that. And we know that as human beings, we don't deal well with uncertainty, right? It causes stress, it causes anxiety, and when it's prolonged, it can have a negative mental health impact on us. We're also dealing with the issue around work-life balance, for example. For many of us that are having to switch to working remotely, blurring the lines between our work and our personal lives. The technology piece, right? So we're on Zoom right now, and we're using tools like this more and more to actually stay connected, to stay productive. And then of course, the social isolation piece, especially for those of us that actually thrive on being in person, and being connected to that energy, picking up on those social cues, and on and on. And so I want you to think about the challenges that you had with social wellness during the pandemic. Some of you talked about that at the top of the conversation. And for those of you who have joined us afterward, I want you to be thinking about what is one of the challenges or the biggest challenges you have dealt with. And let's use this as a framework to figure out how do we actually navigate this. So let me know. So far, so good. Let me give me a thumbs up or a yes into the chat. So far, so good. Okay, good. So where do we actually start? Well, one of the first parts of this is something I want to share about what I learned about how first responders actually respond to incidents when they're called to a scene. And I think Torrance was on, he mentioned that he was a medical corps officer. Maybe he can help enlighten us as to this, and maybe he probably already knows. But anyone know why first responders are trained to walk as opposed to running when they arrive on the scene of an accident? You can let me know in the chat, raise your hand. Anybody know why first responders are trained to walk as opposed to running? So I'll give you a moment to think about that. And I'm going to explain what I understand about this and how this ties into how we navigate this particular challenge that we're dealing with. One of the reasons for this is probably obvious to you, which is that if you're running, you're probably more likely to injure yourself and you're going to be less useful for the person that you've been called to help, right? So that's one of the primary reasons for that. But one of the other reasons has to do with what happens when we are rushing or when we're running, that our cortisol levels raise and our ability to actually be fully present for what's happening in our surroundings is actually diminished, right? So if you're a first responder, you're responding to a car accident, you're running to the scene when you arrive, you trip, you fall, you cut yourself in the glass that you didn't see there, and perhaps you see the first person that's on the ground needing your support, but you, in the midst of your running and rushing, you miss the fact that there are two other people on the other side of the car that actually need your support as well. And so one of the ways that we can begin to really work through what we're dealing with is really beginning to take a step back. So for many of us, we're moving constantly nonstop from the time that we wake up in the morning to we fall asleep at night and we go to bed. And the result of that is that we miss those opportunities, right? So absolutely. So I see Dr. X saying safety first. Torrance is saying scene survey. Absolutely. So being able to take a full assessment of what's happening. And so when we're actually able to slow down in our life and to actually walk as opposed to running through life, we're actually able to have a fuller 360 assessment of what's actually happening. So the first—
Mako, can I ask you a question?
Yes, Sherman.
Could it also be because when you're running, you're using more energy, and in a situation like that with the adrenaline is rushing, I think you want to conserve as much energy so you can be more calmer dealing with the situation. Am I correct about that?
That's spot on. So that ties directly into what Torrance was saying about seeing the scene survey and being able to really be fully present and available to who you are serving or what it is you're doing in that particular moment. So you're spot on with that, Sherman. So this is really the first part of this process. We have to be able to slow down and realize that sometimes we're just running nonstop and we're missing those opportunities. So awesome. I see Dale's also contributing. So thank you for that, Dale. You're spot on as well. So thank you for sharing that. So what's the next step in this process once we have allowed ourselves to be able to slow down a bit, to walk as opposed to running? Well, the second part of this is really just recognizing that there are some things that we're not going to have control over. And maybe you were used to doing things a certain way. Maybe you were used to socializing a certain way before the pandemic. But the reality is that things have changed. And although there's lots of uncertainty in terms of what comes next, if we really want to put ourselves in a position to be resilient in this regard, at some point you got to release and let go of what was. And you have to allow yourself to be focused on how it is that you actually move forward. And so this can be challenging because for many of us, we feel like we have a sunk cost. We've invested so much time and energy into doing things a certain way. We had a social structure that was set up a certain way. But the truth is that that might need to change as we move forward. And so we have to be able to embrace this idea of being able to release and to let go. And then the final part of this is that I want to share with you is it might mean that we have to create a new plan. We have to create a new way forward, right? And so either we get to a place where we are going to recommit to what was working, and if it wasn't working, then we have to revise that and start from a different place. And so I want to plant this seed as we are thinking about what it is that the challenges that we are dealing with in terms of our social well-being, and how is it that we can take a moment to actually walk and not run, to release and to let go, and then create a new plan. So with that being said, I want to just talk a little bit about the how, and then I'm going to wrap us up. So what does this actually look like? So I talked about this idea of mission and higher calling. And most of us are probably really connected to this when it comes to our professional work. But I want you to think about this in terms of how it actually applies to your life. So all of you have served, and you're really good at what you did in terms of serving the country. But what might this actually look like in terms of how you actually apply those same skills, that same framework, that same strategic thinking to how you're actually showing up for your life? And so really simple. We're starting with mission and vision. And that can include professional, but it has to include the personal aspect of it too. And then you got to have those benchmarks that you're measuring success against, which are your goals. And then you have to prioritize those goals, right? So we only have so much time, energy, and resource in a day, right? And so you might have many goals, many benchmarks, but you can only do so many things at one time. So what are you going to do? Pick one or two things that you can do for now. And then, you can get to the rest once you check off the first two things. And then you have your action steps, right? So it's great to have a plan, but if you don't have action that you're taking on a day-to-day basis to move that plan forward toward fulfillment of your mission and vision, then what good is that plan, right? It's just a great idea. It's just a dream. So we have to be able to connect all those things to actually make it a reality. So absolutely, I see Gloria talking about outcomes. Absolutely. So let me just make this plain and give you some practical ways that we can actually do this. So the first part of this is really about planning your day and your weeks. I'm a big fan of this. So you have your goals, you have your mission and your vision, but what are you actually doing in your day-to-day and your week-to-week to actually make this work for you? You can use digital, you can use paper. I've created a product, the intention planner, that I use with the teams that I work with to help you to do this. The point is, whether you're using this or another tool, you got to have it pen and paper or a digital notebook. You got to actually put it down on paper. The other thing that we got to have here is we have to have a healthy relationship with our technology. So we've been talking a lot over the course of the pandemic about what it means to practice social distancing in order to protect ourselves and our loved ones when it comes to spread of disease. But we have to be able to do the same thing when it comes to our technology. So if you're one of those folks where you feel like you're struggling with that, maybe you're too connected, right? Turn off those notifications, get you an alarm clock, and charge your phone, your tablet outside of the bedroom so that you can get a good night's sleep and have some separation between some downtime so that you can actually live life outside of just your connection to your devices. And then finally, tied to this, thinking about your rules of engagement, particularly when it comes to our technology and also when it comes to our social relationships, being clear with yourself about when you're available, when you're at your highest and your best in terms of being available, what's the best way to reach you when something is urgent versus non-urgent? What are expectations in terms of response times? These are all things that we can use as a simple framework to have a better relationship with our technology. So given that I talk a lot about digital wellness, I'm the mindful techie. I would be remiss if I didn't actually leave you with a few digital tools to help you with this process. So I'm going to leave you with a few digital tools, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. X, and maybe we can answer some questions if we have time for that. So the first thing I want to share here is that for folks that are really big on using your devices to stay connected, I want to share with you one of my favorite apps that I discovered during the pandemic. It's an app called You Good, available for both Apple and Android. It's created by actually a Black couple that actually created this app. And it's a simple way to actually stay in touch with friends, with family and colleagues, and to really make it simple to actually check in with folks to see how they're doing. And it's a simple process. You have 3 options when you log into the app to indicate how you're doing. Either you're doing good, you get a green, you're doing so-so, that's a yellow, you're not doing so good and you need a text, you need a phone call, you need some other support, that's a red, right? Really simple way for you to indicate how you're doing for folks that are checking in on you, and to also check in with other folks. It takes you less than 5 seconds to actually do this. So if you're an introvert like me, and you don't want to send a long status update, you don't want to have necessarily a long conversation with everybody to update them on how you're doing, YouGood is one of those apps that can really help you do that in a simplified way. And particularly if you're trying to maintain lots of connections, it could be a simple way at a glance to see how folks are doing and to prioritize who you need to be connecting with on a day-to-day basis. The 5 Love Languages app. This is another one here that I want to share with you. So some of you might be familiar with the 5 Love Languages in terms of a framework for romantic relationships, and it's certainly great for that. But the 5 love languages actually apply to all types of relationships, be they, in the work place, among friends, etc. One of the interesting things about this is it actually helps you to implement the 5 love languages in an automated way. And what does that mean? If you have a friend that they need words of affirmation, that's how they actually feel valued and supported in your connection and in your relationship. The app will then provide reminders about that and then actually provide recommendations. You should send John a postcard. You should send John a note about this, or drop John an email. And that can be a great way for you to connect with people where they are and in how they actually receive that high quality connection. So that's, if you're into apps, another app here that's available for that. Another thing I want to share too is that there's actually a military edition of the 5 love languages for folks that did not know that. So I know that you all have served. And so if you're interested in that and this framework resonates with you, there is a military edition. You can go to Amazon and look it up and check that out. And then the last thing I'm going to share with you is a couple of platforms to really help you to stay engaged, whether you are connecting with folks online, whether you are doing it in person, or a little bit of both. On the left side, there are 2 platforms here, Ayana Therapy and Therapy for Black Girls. Both of these are resources that actually connect you to licensed mental health professionals, if that is what you need. And the cool thing about this is that these are folks that have already been vetted. They're culturally competent in their ability in terms of working with folks from our community. And then on the right side, you have 3 platforms that I recommend in terms of being able to, if you're looking for ways to stay connected and be engaged, especially during the pandemic, especially with Eventbrite and Meetup, you have opportunities to engage in both virtual and in-person communities based on whatever your interest is. It could, maybe you like building model airplanes, maybe you like, bike riding, whatever your interest is, you can find something on one of these platforms. And so if you're looking for ways to stay engaged, be virtually or in person, this can be great. And then Clubhouse is one of the newer social platforms that's audio only. And so for folks that are more old school, could be a great way to connect with folks as well. So just a few resources I wanted to just put out there for folks to consider as you think about this. And I will share the slides. Some people taking pictures and taking notes. I'll share the slides with Dr. X so you all will have those. And yes, I see Gloria's comments. Maybe we can come back to that during Q&A if we have space for that, Dr. X. So I want you all to think about this as we come out of this conversation. Hopefully there's something that inspired you to think differently about the challenge that you're dealing with, and to really make a commitment to yourself to do something that is new, trying at least one new thing, particularly if you had a challenge that you shared at the top of the conversation about your social well-being. What's one thing new that you're going to try to really help you to improve where you are, to get you to a different place? And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. X and thank you all for allowing me to be here and share space with you this morning.
All right, thanks, Miko. Outstanding presentation. I think Sherman mentioned it earlier. Excellent presentation. And without further ado, I want to get some discussion going on. You had some great questions that you posed. This last question, what's one strategy that anyone on the call plans to move forward with? But first, I want to address a question or a statement that Gloria had. She says, we are attempting to yield or not yield to this new culture. Some of us need help. Gloria, can you elaborate on that statement, please?
Well, you see, I was muted. I really wanted to listen to this session. Thank you so much. And maybe we can have a group follow up afterwards. But some of us are so used to having a plan of action. I know I am. And trying to adjust to this newness, I see it as a newness. It's difficult. It's difficult. Generally, I could take a problem and know how to solve it right away. And now I can't, I have to sit and think about it, or I have to call somebody or text somebody, and reaching out to get help outside of what I would normally do is very difficult for me.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. So, one of the things that I shared at my opening, Gloria, is that, this is a time for us to be okay with making ourselves number one, and making space for ourselves. And part of that means being okay and getting used to the idea of actually asking for help. Because when we talk about social wellness, human beings are social beings. And I talk about, we don't thrive. Like, you might have the basic needs met, but we actually don't thrive unless we have that tight knit community and quality connection. And so if you think about it in that way, number one, I want to normalize that it's perfectly okay to ask for help, right? Because none of us walks this journey alone. Like, nobody on this call has gotten to where you are by yourself. We all had to ask for help and get something from somebody, whether you realize it or not. And so, Gloria, I just want to acknowledge and thank you for being vulnerable and for sharing that, and to just really normalize that it's okay for you to ask for help if you need that in order to figure out how to adapt to this newness that you were talking about.
If I could piggyback on what Gloria said, Mako, you did an excellent job. One of the things I want to zero in on is remember I mentioned how we each discovered something about ourselves that we didn't know? You had an earlier graphic where you showed like a roller coaster. And it goes back to what Gloria was saying, one day you think you may have a handle on it, and then the next day you feel in another realm. And it has been like a roller coaster ride during this pandemic, ups and downs. And I think you covered that. Yeah, I think you covered that excellently by bringing out that, because it has been the emotional roller coaster for me from the mental standpoint. And when Gloria mentioned that just stood out.
Absolutely. And I think another aspect of it is that it's not your imagination. Like, we're all experiencing this. So it's not just you, Gloria and Sherman. Like, this is a collective experience. And one of the other things that we can do is to, when we're in places like where we feel like that remember that you're not the only one going through it, right? That we're all sort of in this together, so to speak. And so I in that space, I encourage all of us, if we need support, we need help to seek that out. There's nothing wrong with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great. That's great. And one thing that I elaborate on and I clarify with people when I catch them off guard with this whole idea of uplift your damn self, they initially may think that, oh, what do you mean? Do I not ask for help? Do I not pray about it? Do I not go to someone who may know more than me? No, it's all about getting yourself up to a level, uplifting yourself to a level where you're transparent, where you're going to take some responsibility to move yourself forward versus staying at this victim mentality level or being at this idea of conflict. So it's great for us, and that's what I love about what we're doing here. We're Black veterans, we're Black members of our community, and this is a safe space for us to be vulnerable, for us to be transparent, and hopefully no one feels judged. Sometimes you don't have anyone else to lean on, to talk to. You may think, okay, well, I have family members. Well, sometimes you have problems with your family that you need to talk to somebody else about, or at least put it out there to someone who may be non-biased. And the people that cause you the most stress are typically the people closest to you. They're typically the people that share the last name of you.
Yes.
So those are the ones, because if they're not in your family, if they're not friends, if they're not in your network, then you can just walk away from them and just, say, go kick rocks. But it's the ones that are closest to you that cause you the most stress. So I want to see if anyone has any comments on those statements. Over.
No. Hi everybody. Sorry I was a little late this morning. I'm Dedrin Dunbar. I'm a friend of Dr. X. So, I was one of my recent thoughts. You go through these cycles, and every time you go through a little cycle, you have a little something that gets you out of it, a new piece that you add that you can walk around with, philosophy type thing, right? And my latest piece of walking around with philosophy is forget your emotions. I'm talking about mine. I got a plan. I can't worry about my emotions. Forget my emotions, man. I mean, yes, I feel up, I feel down, I'm in the middle, I'm here, there, whatever, but I just can't. I gotta have, like we talked about, write down your plan, know what you're executing on. And that's the key, and I always tell people, man, you can get all complex about how this thing should be going, but we got to be able, like you said, when you're walking into a hazardous situation, you got to walk. You can't run and start thinking, because the only thing you start thinking about is the thing that's most important, the ground underneath your feet, or where you got to go, not all these other things that you have to take care of in order to get there successfully. And
Yep.
And that is the key that has been the key for me. Don't think about the emotion, the weather, so to speak. Understand the climate and where it's trending for yourself, and that's been a real help for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Georgia, I don't know if you can hear me, but is there something that you would like to add to what has been said? I don't know if Georgia can hear. But with that, one thing about the eagle, as you see as one of the icons on here, one thing about the eagle is you don't see it in flocks. You see an eagle typically by itself. And one thing about social well-being is, yes, there are times in which you have to be around other people to build your social wellness. We were meant to be isolated, but sometimes perhaps you need to be. And it's not being, I think Torrance has said it best. He says, it's not about being selfish. Sometimes you just need to take care of yourself and find a space, maybe not just mentally and emotionally, but maybe physically. Where can you go? Maybe in your house or outside or somewhere in which you break away from other people and social media. Because sometimes you can just go into another space, but you still have your phone. And now you're checking, and I'm victim of this. I go from Facebook to Instagram to LinkedIn just to see what's going on out there. So with that, Miko, is there any best practice that we should consider when we're just so used to being on all these social media platforms?
Yeah, I would echo what you said in terms of taking time for yourself. And I mentioned putting yourself at the top of your to-do list, something that I think a lot of us have a hard time doing. But the other part of this is taking time to go inside. So I shared the breathing exercise as one of the ways that we can do that. But how much time do we actually take to actually to go inside and go within for ourselves. And so whatever that practice looks like for you. So is that prayer? Is that meditation? Are you part of a spiritual community? Do you have another type of practice that you're engaged in? I think that's a critical place to start. I think for some of us, and part of the challenge that we're dealing with when it comes to the technology is that we're looking to the outside for fulfillment and validation. And the outside can never satisfy you. And so you got to start with the inside. You're always going to be chasing something. You're never going to be satisfied with what you see on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, no matter how good it looks or how nice it sounds. So you got to start with the inside.
Absolutely.
Hey, Dr. X.
Go ahead, Torrance.
So what I did was about a month ago, I deleted the Facebook app off my phone. I still have Facebook. I deleted the app. And I still have messages so I can check messages. And I was just telling myself yesterday, Instagram is about to go too. It's about to I'm gonna delete it off my phone. And I don't compare myself, but comparison is a joy thief. And even if you do get on social media and you see what everybody else is doing, people are posting all these happiness photos. Sometimes it's a ruse. And you hear all these things that people move in silence, real G's move in silence, or people that are really very successful. People want to share their success stories, because I found this chart online the other day, and it talks about the happiness chemicals and how to hack them. So we have dopamine, which is the reward chemical. So you do that by eating food, achieving a goal, complete a task, or self-care activities. The endorphin is the painkiller. Exercise, listening to music, watching a movie, or laughter. Oxytocin is the love hormone, socializing, what we're talking about today, physical touch, animals, petting animals, helping others. And the last one is serotonin, is the mood stabilizers, sun exposure, mindfulness is something that we did today, as well as be with mature and meditation. So, I've been practicing on just, when I'm alone. At one time, I didn't think I could be alone. I was so used to having people around, but it's like now, it's like, man, I love my peace. I love my space. It's like, I don't want to go back to the normal life. I like the life I have now. And whereas I can have a balance of social interaction with the people that I want to socialize with, that are in my space, that I feel I let in my space, and remove everything else that makes me unhappy.
Yeah, absolutely. I would, just to extend that, I would say, and to your point, Dr. X, but the questions you asked, we can have a healthy relationship with our technology. And so I'm not bashing technology. What I'm saying is for us to be intentional about how we're using it, right? So maybe that means setting a time limit for how much time we're spending on Instagram or Facebook. Or for me, for example, I don't have social media on my phone. I access it on my computer or my tablet. So that means when I'm out and about, I don't have that as a crutch to go to when I'm out and about, right? And so I use it in a very intentional way. And also knowing why you're on the platform. I think that's another thing. Knowing why you're on Instagram and why you're on Facebook. Are you there to connect with friends and family? Are you there to escape for a little bit? Like, whatever the reason is valid, but you need to be clear about why you're there, how much time you're spending there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got 6 more minutes left. Does anyone have any other? I think we got time for one more question, one more comment before Miko provides us any last words. Okay. Hearing none. I want to, again, thank everyone for coming. This conversation is every Saturday at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I know that you won't be able to make it every Saturday. You all will get a link to the recording and a free copy of my e-workbook called Self-Leadership in Transition. I would like to now turn it over to Miko for any last words. Over.
I would encourage people, as you leave this conversation, to do 2 things. One is to really seriously reflect on what's one thing that you can do and that you're going to commit to for yourself coming out of this conversation to improve your own social wellness and well-being. And then the final thing is, I truly believe that there's nothing more important than being connected to that higher mission, that higher purpose for why we're here. So again, whether you're retired or whether you're still in the workforce, whatever that actually looks like for you, to think about not just what that professional mission and vision looks like, but what does it actually look like for how you're showing up in your personal life. And if you can get connected to that, that can be the foundation for a really healthy social connection and social well-being. So I want to thank you all for allowing me to be here and share space with you. And thank you, Dr. X, for the work that you're doing.
Hey,
Can I
phenomenal.
Can I
Go
say
ahead,
one
Sherman.
thing? Can I say
Sure.
one thing? First of all, I want to thank Mako for your presentation today. It was outstanding. I think it was medicine for the heart and medicine for the brain. But I also want to take time out to recognize and applaud Dr. X for presenting this platform. He's always an innovator and he's a problem solver. I just want to give him accolades. And sir, I want to salute you for what you're doing. A great job. And I just want to let you know you're touching lives and you're shaping lives as well. And God bless you, brother.
Hey, thank you, sir. Truly, truly appreciate it. Hopefully, I'll be able to see you later on today for an event we're having to see you in person. It will be great. Thanks again, everyone. And again, you'll get the recording and really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day, everybody.
All right,
Have a great day. Take care.
Hey, Miko, you got a moment?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. I think Georgia may be, let me see if, okay. Well, Georgia, are you out there? She may be multitasking. I've done that before. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and remove her. So, man, great job. Great job. It's something that we typically don't hear as individuals, especially as Black folks, hearing from a professional like yourself, technical background, but able to, you know, put it in layman's terms and give people immediate practical things to do once they get off the call. And now you got people thinking like, you know what, maybe I should go ahead and delete this app, you know, from my phone or what have you. So, so great job. Thanks again. And I wanted to make sure that I know my day is going to get away from me. I want to know what's the best way to provide you that $50 stipend and see what other things on that list you wanted to take advantage of from your,
So in terms of the stipend, so I mean, I'm not sure, are you on PayPal or Cash App? You know, what works for you?
So I'm on PayPal and Zelle.
Okay, just PayPal it to my email address then. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. PayPal.
So that works for that. And then in terms of the list, you know, I would love to get a written testimonial from you.
Okay.
And I would also love it if, you know, you could take a moment to think about, you know, your network. You know, is there anybody or any organization in your network that you think could benefit from the work that I'm doing? You think they're ready, willing, and able to, to invest in something like that, you know, to make it a warm introduction, if you can think of anybody that might be ready for that.
Okay. Too easy. Gotcha. All right. I'll go ahead and start taking care of that. And yeah.
All right.
Great,
awesome.
Great. Hey, thanks again, man.
You're very welcome. I'm going to send you the slides.
Okay.
I'll send you a link for the testimonial. And yeah, if you need anything else, let me know.
Okay, will do. Hey, enjoy the rest of your weekend, brother.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Yep.